Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, college sports fans across the nation and around the world. This is the Tim May Show. It's a special edition of the Tim May Show because anytime I do two in 1 week, well, I'm working overtime. But this one deserved it. Gene Smith, going into his 19th year as the athletic director at Ohio State, announced on Wednesday here in Columbus that this will be his final year as the Ohio State athletic director, hired in 2005 to replace the sort of forced out Andy Geiger. He has endured 19 years, third most of any athletic director in Ohio State history. And there's only been 8. So we'll see what the next one does. But the next one's going to be stepping into some huge shoes. Gene Smith, through the years, well, first he was the first ever African-American athletic director at The Ohio State University. But then past that, he made his shoes larger and larger for the next person to fill as his reign went on. I mean, there are several major college athletic directors now who learned under his tutelage, not the least of whom are Matt Chun at Washington State, Martin Jarmond at UCLA, Diana Sabo, just named the athletic director at Utah State, and Heather Lyke at Pittsburgh. Those have all become leaders in their field, and they will tell you that it was Gene Smith who gave him that big boost, maybe right when they needed it. And one of those guys is an Asian American in Pat Chun, African American in Martin Jarmond, and 2 females, Diana Sabo and Heather Lyke. Gene Smith went out of his way to make sure inclusion and elevation was part of his regime at The Ohio State University, and he's still going on with that today. But with that said, he oversaw the largest major college sports programs in the country, 36 varsity sports, and saw it through tough times, like not the least of which was the 2020 COVID year when revenues, the bottom fell out of the revenues department, but he found a way to keep 36 varsity sports going despite the challenges. Along the way, he became a spokesman and then a leader in not just in the Big Ten, but nationally. Served on several august committees, but the main thing he did in the last several years is he has started asserting himself from the pulpit he resides or stands behind, I guess is the better term, and also the strength that Ohio State University should show across the nation. He has wielded that power in the last several years, especially in the Big Ten. And he's been a guiding force in many respects, but also in stepping up and saying, college football playoff is what's needed, really. An expanded college football playoff is what's needed to decide things nationally. And of course, that comes to major fruition starting next year with 12 teams at the moment, 12 teams making the expanded college football playoff field. He's also pushed for perhaps the idea of a super conference or a major conference of football that's divorced from the current situation that's going on with the NCAA, because it's become almost unwieldy for the NCAA to oversee where major college athletics have gone, especially in football and basketball, but football definitely. And, he may see that come to fruition before his time is done, because as I reminded him, he still got till June 30th, 2024 to screw something up and or have another major achievement. So we'll see where that goes. But it came as a surprise to most of the reporters. I think to every reporter at the press conference on Wednesday. We had gathered pretty much to ask Gene Smith about his views on the realignment in the Big Ten, which is going to see now Washington and Oregon joining the Big Ten to become the 17th and 18th members of the burgeoning conference. Who knows where it's headed after that? But he surprised us all by, in essence, reading his retirement or making his retirement statement good on June 30th, 2024. And so then, of course, that press conference tilted definitely in favor of asking Gene Smith about his legacy, his history, the challenges he had. For example, the challenges there in 2011 when they had to bid adieu to head coach Jim Tressel, the 2002 national championship winning coach. Luke Fickell served as an interim head coach, and then Gene was able to reach out and hire at that moment an available Urban Meyer to then really right the ship again and steer it into the glory years, which have continued now, going into the 5th season under Ryan Day. Yeah, Ryan Day hadn't won a national championship yet. Yeah, he's lost 2 straight games to Michigan, but I don't think anyone else has a better record over the last 4 seasons than Ryan Day nationally, and has taken his team to 3 of the college football playoff, the college football playoff tournaments. We all know what happened last year. He has lost 2 straight to Michigan, but there's a lot going for Ryan Day, as Gene Smith will get into in this conversation I had with him in his office several hours after his big announcement. So, let's move on to my conversation with Gene Smith. He and I have known each other since he first showed up, since I first tailed the cavalcade of cars as he made his rounds when he first showed up in Columbus to do an interview for the job, coming from Arizona State. And we laughed about that today. And, I've covered him in Ohio State through a lot of ups, like the 2014 national championship and several other championships, and a lot of downs. Like I said, some of the challenges he had with his coaching staff along the way, with athletes along the way. But those have gotten fewer and far between, especially with the athletes, because we talk in depth about his move. His major focus was getting more quality athletes, more quality citizens in here at Ohio State. Of course, you got to be great. They've got to be great players and athletes in their own right, but to upgrade everything about the Ohio State University's athletic department, including the people involved. And he's done a great job in that regard as we talk. And obviously, he's upgraded every coach's salary. He's made Ohio State right at or near the top of almost every coaching remuneration situation, even for special assistants and things like that, especially in the football realm. And the other point he makes in this is his successor definitely needs to keep in mind that in the modern age, with everything that football provides from a fiscal FISCAL standpoint, it is important for the Ohio State football program to be as healthy as possible. And he thinks his successor will get that idea, sooner rather than later. Probably should come in with that idea in mind. But hey, enough of me murmuring about here. Let's get to my conversation with Gene Smith. Gene Smith, you caught us all a little bit off guard when you decide, hey, I'm finally gonna hang it up. And it does feel like almost finally, doesn't it? Or do you feel like, boy, things have gone really fast here the last decade?
Yeah, that's really good, Tim. Finally, it's every year that Sheila and I have talked about this, it's kind of like I always have a reason to keep going, right? To your point, so there is a finality to it, and I feel really good and relaxed about the decision that Sheila and I made this summer. And but yeah, you're right. I mean, that was like, oh wow, finally we're here after all these conversations over the years.
Yeah. And real quick about the decision, was it just you woke up one morning and you'd finally all put it together in your head? Some people say it's when that morning you wake up and you're more interested in being on vacation or doing what you were doing as opposed to going to work. I mean, that's sort of the telltale sign.
So for me, it's it's always been what some of my mentors have told me, that you're just gonna know. You're just gonna know. And so we were actually in Arizona this summer, and I was creating this list for my goals for the year and all that kind of stuff when you're just chilling. And I remember talking to Sheila and saying, you know what, I think this might be done, because I didn't feel like I needed to be the driver for all those things anymore. And so anyway, I began to rationalize a different way and say, you know what, the place is okay. There's good people there. I don't need to do these things, and I can walk away. And so that's really what it was. It wasn't some incident or anything of that nature. It was just, I just knew.
Yeah, it came to fruition.
Yeah, that's right.
Man, one of the first times I ever spoke to you, it might not have been in this office. I think your office might have changed a few times.
So St. John.
Yeah, St. John. But you had that great line about when you were a little kid, and because I've remembered this a million times, because it happened with me when I was a youngster. My dad let me drive the boat.
Yeah.
Let me drive the boat for the first time. Has this felt like driving a huge oil tanker?
Yeah.
What is it? What is the responsibility felt like?
Yeah.
You understand that even when you're sleeping, you're in charge.
Yeah, no, it's been significant, you know, and I take you back to '05. I mean, we've changed so much since then. You know, the culture and the quality of student athlete that we recruit. You know, when the university went to selective admissions and making sure we recruited young people who can compete in the classroom, it's been significant relative to the responsibility. Wins and losses are there, but you know, when someone gives you their son or their daughter and trusts you for 3, 4, 5 years, that's a significant responsibility. And I got a text after the press conference this morning from Holly, our synchronized swimming coach, and she reminded me that the first time we met was when Jessica Beck passed away. And you know, you got people's lives in your hands.
Yeah.
And so most people don't think about athletics that way, but I do.
Yeah.
And so it's a tremendous responsibility, but it's also an honor.
Yeah.
If you have these gifted student athletes.
Yeah, and I brought it up to you in the press conference. I'll bring it up again, though, that, I've told Jerry Emig, your sterling sports information director, probably deserves more money. I'm just saying that because he's sitting on the other side over here. But he does deserve more money, but that's another story. You got one last chance to give him a big raise. But I have mentioned this to him many times over the last several years. There just seems to be it's not knocking guys who were here before. I'm talking about football players because that's primarily what I've covered. It just seems to be a different ilk of person. You know what I mean? And that's not slamming anybody else who's been here before, but these all seem like quality individuals. So,
that's it.
And my point is, in other words, did you make that a point with your coaches and stuff that recruit the person and the play?
So,
I mean, because that doesn't just happen overnight.
No. So, we had years when I first came here, and you remember, where you wake up in the morning and the dispatch might have 3, 4, 5 guys in there that got in trouble, Thursday or whatever. And so we needed to change our focus and recruit character. And then again, when the academic status of the institution started to rise, we need to make sure we recruited young people who can compete in the classroom. I never want a student athlete to be in the classroom and feel like they can't compete, because their self-esteem goes down, they put on their hat, they sit in the back of the class, and next thing you know, you have an academic casualty. Yeah. We haven't had an academic casualty in a long time.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah,
it's really, and so it used to be in the summer times we sit around and we have like 12 or 15 guys that were ineligible, and that doesn't happen anymore. And so it goes to your point that our coaches have bought into recruiting character. Sure, you got to recruit talent because you got to win, but there's enough players out there across this country that you can recruit talent and character. And I have to applaud. Urban did it. Urban really went after it hard. Ryan's inherited and taken it to another level. And then all of our Olympic sport coaches have done a great job too.
Oh yeah, I mean, you could go on and on about that. I mean, I'm not sitting here, gusting wind, so to speak.
Right.
At your backside.
It's reality.
Anybody who's been around it can see the change and stuff. The other thing, before I get into maybe some X's and O's, so to speak, is, but you've also brought along people's careers. I mentioned that to you in the press conference, but it's kind of stunning when you look around the people who have come through this building, the administration building, and gone on to bigger and better things and stuff. And I asked you, sort of in a haphazard way, did you go into this job with that intent also to raise, minorities to a certain extent?
Sure.
And not that females are minorities, but they were minorities in this realm and stuff.
Sure,
But
no question.
but African Americans, Pat Chun, Asian American, and the females that have come through here, did you go into it with a little bit of that in mind?
Oh yeah, it's always been intentional. When again, I'm 67. I was an athletic director at the age of 29, and there was only 2 black athletic directors at that time. And so I've always had a passion for trying to provide opportunities for people of color, for women to have a chance to move up in this industry and sit ultimately in the seat. So it's been strategic over the years. Heather Lycan, who's now at Pitt, was very strategic. I remember sitting in this office having a conversation about what she needed to do to have that opportunity, and Diana was a perfect example of that. And so I've always had those conversations. And then there's people who weren't working for me that were in different parts of the industry in different places that I've always championed to try and help them develop and be an athletic director. So, no, that's been a part of the plan. And but also, you having beyond that, just having a culture where you focus on developing people, regardless of the fact they're male, female, or African American. So when you do that naturally, it kind of helps rises all ships.
And it attracts talent.
Big time.
Yeah.
Big time.
Yeah. Your toughest, speaking of X's and O's, your toughest moment of looking somebody in the eye and going, I think we've reached the end here. You understand what I'm saying? The relationship. Yeah. Was it Jim Tressel in 2011? Was it Thad Matta? You had frank conversations with the guys. Right. Urban, I'm not sure exactly clearly what happened at the end of 2018, but clearly Urban, had some misgivings there, and so did you. But what y'all went through there in 2018, like you said, that's another podcast for another day. Don't get me started. But which one was the toughest when you look back on it?
They're all tough.
I know. I knew you were going to say that.
They all are, because you're affecting so many lives. That individual's lives, their family, and then the assistant's life. And then it depends on how the support structure is with the support people. So they're all hard, but so you just try and do it in a sensitive and humanistic way. And so it's, sure, Jim Tressel's was exceptionally hard. I mean, good human being, and made a mistake that was challenging. And I knew him, way before coming to Ohio State. I was the athletic director at Eastern Michigan. He was football coach and athletic director at Youngstown State. So that was really hard, but all of them are hard.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of how you have to be humanistic, sensitive, and as you having those conversations.
When you're hiring a head football coach, you've been through this now. Mm-hmm. You understand what's at stake at a place like this. Right. It's very similar to Alabama. Mm-hmm. I mean, mm-hmm. Texas, wherever you want to name it. Some people get it right. A lot of times they get it wrong, and they hire another one. I mean, you got it right. Obviously Urban Meyer was out there without a job, it was easy to go get Urban Meyer. You had to name Luke Fickell that interim coach, but he learned so much from that year. It's probably crazy that he's going to implement now to try to beat you guys from Wisconsin.
That's right.
But the point is, though, that has got to be the most, I would think, healthy. You want everybody to win. I know what you're going to say. They're all your children, but the football program at a place like this.
Oh, it's the juice. I mean, you got to stay focused.
Do you feel the pressure all the time? What do you?
Yeah, it's funny. It's hard for me to say pressure, because to me it's an opportunity. It's excitement. I just get jacked about it. And when I'm sitting in the office when I was Urban, or now with Ryan, sitting over there talking about, okay, tell me about who's going to be at the right tackle. What are you doing at left tackle? I mean, having those conversations are just so refreshing. I'm going to miss those the most. And so last night when I told Ryan Day about my situation, we were talking about the quarterback, and so
what did he say?
Yeah, I'm not telling you.
Okay, go ahead.
So at the end of the day, it's football is the king.
Yeah.
All of our coaches understand it, our student athletes understand it. The institution has to keep that understanding. Whoever the new president is, whoever the new AD is, they got to understand that football is a priority, and you got to make sure you're focused on that 100%.
Have major colleges at this level, and there are very few at this level, but you know what I'm talking about, have they backed themselves into a corner from a fiscal, FISCAL standpoint about how healthy the football program needs to be to share, to grab on and share in the wealth, which has become so vital?
Yeah, they have. And so some have made tremendous mistakes in that area.
Yeah.
And so you got to be smart about it, and make sure you're very strategic in the dollars that you put in it. You just don't spend to spend. You have to be suspended. Makes sense to you.
Yeah.
And you got to work with your football coach and make sure that the meals that we're putting out there make sense. And so there's a lot of places that have chased dreams. I remember when I was at Eastern Michigan, and some of my coaches would come to me and say, well, you know what they're doing over at Michigan, you know what they're doing at Michigan State. And I used to say, well, I don't worry about them.
Yeah.
I want to be Toledo. I want to be Bowling Green. If you want to do what they're doing, go get a job there.
Yeah.
And so, you got to keep it in perspective where you are and relative to your competition. Don't try and chase somebody that you're not by just throwing money into football. I'm proud of what North Dakota State did.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody's saying, oh, you guys should jump to FBS, but they held strong to stay where they are. And look at them.
Yeah.
They're killing it at the FCS level.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think you got to be smart about your investments around football.
Yeah, and basically be strong, be the king of your neighborhood.
That's right. That's it.
But here's the interesting thing about major college football now. Mm-hmm. The neighborhood encompasses everybody because there's a college football playoff. Mm-hmm. There's going to be the pressure on coaches to make first that 12-team field and then to win it all. Kind of like college basketball to a certain extent.
Right.
Do you like this monster that's been? I mean, it's kind of come along,
Sure.
and when you came here, it was still the BCS at that point.
That's right.
Is this monster sustainable? And number two, is it just going to bring ungodly pressure?
I just think it's a matter of how you look at it. I think it's tremendous opportunity. It's hard to kind of create a Cinderella with 12 teams like you do in basketball, but you might have that experience where you have somebody get in, a Boise State might get in, and next thing you know, they beat somebody, and everybody's like, oh, wow. And then you start studying that team a little bit more. I remember when I was on the chair of the basketball committee, and we put VCU in ahead of a couple other schools, and people went nuts, but they hadn't studied the VCU program and saw what Shaka had built there, and they ended up in the Final Four.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know if the 12-team playoff will ultimately create that Cinderella program, but I think it can happen. Or Cincinnati a few years ago could have been that. So I don't know. I like the 12-team playoff. I think it's going to be magical. We shifted when we had data points from the 4-team playoff. So there'll be a time, down the road when they'll say, oh, we got enough data points from the 12-team. Maybe we should go to 18. I don't know.
Football is such a brutal sport. You played it at the highest level at Notre Dame. Is it Notre Dame or the Notre Dame?
It's Notre Dame.
And my point is, though, you know how brutal it can be in the big-time games and stuff.
Right.
Are college football programs built to sustain a team over a conference championship game and possibly 4 playoff games?
Right.
From a physically standpoint, are they built for that?
It depends on where you are. And so, if you have coaches like we have with Ryan Day who understands you got to build depth. You got to build depth for that particular run. And then you utilize the sports science in order to keep your players healthy, the recovery and all those type of things. Yeah, I think you can build it. Are all of them doing it the right way? Who knows? But for us, we've decided we got to build our depth, and we got to make sure we're smart about our players and their recovery and all those type of things. So I remember years ago, we started to taper back in earlier in the season. It used to be you had pads on Wednesday, Thursday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and now you start to taper off a little bit earlier and take pads off earlier, and so I just think it's a natural evolution. So we've gone from 3-a-days to 2-a-days to 1-a-days.
Yeah, but you still have that game day, and bottom line is I just remember the Georgia game, and
it's brutal.
Case Stover goes out. The best receiver in the country goes out. Might not have been available the next week, if there'd been a game.
Right.
Well, there was a game, but y'all weren't in it. But real quick.
That's right. That's where the depth comes in.
Yeah,
That's
of course.
a perfect example.
Yeah. But some people luck out and some people don't.
That's right.
But I guess that happens on the NFL level too when you think
That's
about
right.
it.
Every
Except
level.
there's the waiver wire. Boy, if you could just relive that moment. Give me one moment now. Don't tell me 20. One moment where you just felt like, yes, this is what I wanted to feel when I came to The Ohio State University in 2005, was part of a nationwide search. I remember chasing y'all's car when y'all were getting when you were getting interviewed and stuff.
right.
I mean, it was like yesterday. Give me that one moment where you just felt like, yeah, this. I mean, I'm getting goosebumps thinking about what you might say, but where you just felt like, yes, this is what it's all about. This is why I came here.
I think it was the year. So we won a national championship in football, and we won a national championship in wrestling, and all of our other sports were highly competitive too as well. And it was, that was it, and I think we're in North Carolina with our women's basketball team, and I was telling my wife, I got to jump on this plane. I got to make it to St. Louis because, we had a chance. And I remember landing in St. Louis and, working my way to the arena and standing outside there. And I didn't have a credential, so, all that kind of stuff. But I had to get in there to see our wrestling team, and we won it. And so that was the year that I felt like, okay, this is it. This is what it should be. And when I met my wife years ago at Eastern Michigan, she said, what is your goal? And I said, my goal is to be at a place where every Saturday I can wake up and know that our football team has a chance to win.
Yeah. Bingo.
Bingo.
Yeah. Gene, it's interesting to me. You knew Ohio State was hiring an African American because you were an African American. Mm-hmm. Did you understand? At that point in your career, did you understand the significance of that? I ask it in a weird way, only because you were already an accomplished athletic director. It wasn't like they were taking a chance on a guy from Mars.
Right.
To come in and lead the program. Did you feel ultra qualified for this? But were you also feeling, will they take this shot?
No, it's funny, Tim. When I first became an athletic director and began to grow and learn, I established really early that I couldn't fail. And back in the day, I couldn't fail.
Yeah.
Because the hiring authorities at that time would use it as an excuse. Look, a black athletic director can never be successful. He can't fundraise. Can't blah blah blah.
Black head coach. Blah,
That's
blah,
right.
blah.
The same thing. And so I took it as an honor and a privilege to have an opportunity to progress in this business, to be the first black athletic director to ever become the president of NACDA, to be the first black athletic director at Iowa State University. I mean, I always took those as honors and privileges and said, I got to make sure my X's and O's are solid and do the job exceptionally well. And so, when Ohio State called, I never thought about it. I really didn't.
Yeah.
I just said, hey, I have the requisite talent and skill to execute the job. So.
I know, that's what I've told people. I mean, you were qualified. I mean,
Yeah.
What else you need to do?
Exactly right.
It's the other people that have to make the call.
Right.
As you sit here today compared to that day when you drove the boat for the first time for your dad, my dad used to let me drive it so I'd drive it up on the trailer. You know what I'm talking about.
That's right.
You know where I'm going.
That's right.
But as you sit here, and you think back to that young man, are you a little bit, surprised, amazed by how you have become a mover and shaker
That's great.
in your profession? Because when you're at Eastern Michigan, you're not a mover and a shaker.
No.
You might have shaked, but you might not have moved a lot.
No, when I think back to, my blessing as a child and, where I came from and all that, I never aspired to be someone like this. I didn't have that as a vision.
Yeah.
And so, I periodically look back at it and say, God, how fortunate that I was to have the dad that I had, to have the mom that I had, that made some tough decisions for me that I didn't necessarily like when they made those decisions, but now I get it.
Yeah.
And then, the people that I've been able to be around through my career, phenomenal people that embrace me and help me see things that I didn't see. I've been fortunate. I feel good about my opportunities that I've had.
I asked you a couple of times, and it's interesting because I've always thought Ohio State could grab the tail of the dog anytime they wanted to, and control things. And a lot of us agree that we think you have done that, especially the last several years, because it was time, or there were some some directional things that needed to be fixed in the conference, et cetera, even nationally. When did you feel empowered enough, and maybe confident enough in yourself to do that? You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Because
no,
you have.
no. It's one I really when I got calls from other colleagues, and or when I was at a convention or something, and they would say, we need someone to make this statement, or in situations where during COVID, that was a natural one. Bring football back, that was natural, and fighting for our program. But there's been other times, like, when I threw out the bomb about, we needed to restructure football, and football should be under the college football playoff. That was a result of conversations with my friends, because nobody was talking about it.
Yeah.
We're sitting around and talking about it, but nobody was talking about it nationally. And I said, well, I'll throw it out there. And so, I guess you reach a point in your career where you got to help your colleagues, and you feel secure enough to be willing to throw that out there. And actually, you know what, you got thick enough skin to take the heat.
Yeah.
That's I knew that when I threw that out there about the college football playoff, there'd be people that would call me crazy, all that kind of stuff. But there's noise in the system to me.
All right, last question for me. I know, because I could go on forever. I've enjoyed my relationship with you. By the way, I wanted to get that in there.
It's true. It's been
I'm not going to start crying. No, I'm just kidding.
Go ahead, start crying.
Yeah. But I asked you in that press conference, about the chaos off the field and the never been better on the field. But I do want to get to this, and you brought it up. College football on the elite level. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can't really base everything on what number 128 is capable of doing, right?
That's right.
We are at that moment. We may have been at that moment for a while now.
Right.
But now it's like obvious to everybody that, you put on this jersey, that doesn't necessarily mean you're in the same kind of program, the same kind of football that Ohio State's in.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And you started at Eastern Michigan. The reason I'm asking is athletic.
That's why I said, yeah.
So in your mind, and just think about this for a minute, in your mind, what is a feasible number out there of programs in a general sense that you think, if in fact there is finally a breakaway for major college football, because it is so different from everything else, what's a feasible number that we're talking about there?
Well, that's interesting. I don't know. I've never thought about it. It used to be easy because it was like
all the Power 5, right?
Yeah, 65.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you can say that now. I don't.
Well, there aren't Power 5 anymore.
Yeah, right. If you just say that you wanted to create another super league, and then you'd have to go and pick, those schools that are as successful, like us, the team up north, Penn State maybe, and Alabama, and you really have to create that list. I just don't know the Texases of the world, the SCs of the world, because it has to be. You have to come up with a strategy to look at historical success, because sometimes it's up and down.
Right.
And say, I don't know what that number is. But you wouldn't create that, though, because you'd just be beating up on each other.
Well, exactly. So that's what I've always brought up with everybody. You got to have somebody to play.
Yeah, you're going to be beating up on each other.
If all of a sudden Texas, Ohio State, Alabama, and Georgia and USC are all like 7-5, the public's not going to be happy, right?
No.
Yeah.
So
that's why college football is so interesting.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. But but to your point, I don't know what that number is. It's probably in your 20s, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
But I just don't see that happening.
Yeah. Can I ask you one last thing?
Yeah.
I said, kind of in a general sense, what are you most proud of in your career? And you still got like 11 months to screw it up or make it even better.
That's right. That's right.
But what are you most proud of? I mean, other than, we talked about the people that you've elevated. I mean, golly, walk-ons and stuff at Ohio State who've gotten shots and stuff. Like you talked about maintaining 36 varsity sports in a time when people were cutting.
So, Tim, you're going a little deeper than, I'm very proud that we focused on the total student athlete development. That's critical. And I'm proud that I made it. I am. Back in the day, to our earlier conversation, it made me think about this over our conversation. And Bill asked me that this morning, it made me think as an African American back in the day, you didn't think you'd make it, and you just had to, overcome that. And I guess I'm kind of proud that I had that opportunity to make it and be in the seat and as an African American, the first black athletic director at Ohio State, and so yeah, I guess I'm proud of that.
Ladies and gentlemen, the incomparable Gene Smith. Thank you, Gene.
Thank you, Tim. Appreciate you.